Well, one of the problems which we have seen when we were analyzing what had happened during that crisis, one of the problems, because not all the member states had the same problem, even those who went into a deep crisis, but there were several member states where this cozy relationship between the banks on a territory and those who, as national supervisors, should have controlled these banks and didn't do their job. I give you several examples. Ireland, Cyprus, just now. So, what are the lessons to be learned? Let not this to happen again. Let's control the banks. Let's see if things are going wrong, that we can stop it. Because in the end, what has happened until now, it is the taxpayer which has to pay for an irresponsible behavior of the banks. And that is why we decided to create a banking union. This banking union has 3 pillars. The first pillar is a European supervisor, to break down this cozy relationship. And the supervisor, the major supervisor for the 8,000 European banks is the European Central Bank in Frankfurt. The European Central Bank, of course, will not supervise the 8,000 banks. Clear, can't do that. It will delegate the supervising task for the smaller banks, those which are not system relevant, to the national supervisors. Those will not be out of job. But the ECB can at any moment come in if it sees something is going wrong in order to break that from the beginning on. This in order not to see anymore that banks which have become too big, too important, which are not controlled, fail, and a state fails. That was, for instance, the case in Ireland. Ireland was a strong state with a solid budget, but the banks brought the state into bankruptcy because the state had to pay for the banks. This functioning of the supervisor has been decreed as a conditio sine qua non, as a basic condition for the possibility of the banks to be refinanced in case of emergency by the ESM, the European system, which is a firewall with a power of 500 billion euros. There are 2 other elements in the European Banking Union which are very important. The single supervisor has been decided. It needs just now to be implemented, but the decision between the Council and the European Parliament is done. The second one is a single resolution mechanism. If banks fail, how are they, if they go to bankruptcy, how is this done without too many difficulties? We have seen, for instance, what has happened in Great Britain with the Anglo, with the, not the Anglo Bank, the, Northern with the Northern Rock. We have seen it in Cyprus, we have seen it in Spain. So we need an orderly way of resuming the banks. And the third one is the deposit guarantee scheme. The deposit guarantee scheme, you know that we do have a European law which guarantees deposits up to 100,000 euros. And those are national schemes. Cyprus even didn't have established a national scheme. So at any rate we would have to take on the default of those schemes. But normally each member state needs to have that, the banks need to have these guarantees. What we want to have is a European-wide one. So, first step done, needs to be implemented shortly. Second step for the single resolution mechanism, we will put a legislation on the table before summer. And the third one will be a more difficult one, because some member states are not very eager to put their eggs in the same basket as the eggs of the other ones. But when we have finished this whole system, And you know that we have also the capital requirements of 9% of the banks. So this comes on top of this. Then we will have a solid banking system which will not put states into danger anymore. So also to answer to your colleague and friend, we need it. We learned out of the catastrophe which has happened, and we put in place a system so that such a catastrophe doesn't happen again. Because we have seen also when the banking system is broke, then there is no more money. The banks do not lend anymore to the normal economy, and companies need to function to have the lending. So all this is linked. You see, you cannot take out one piece and say that piece we solve it and the others we don't. No, you have a lot of pieces which work together, and the banking union is one very essential, because we need our banks not to speculate but to utilize their money in order to lend to the normal economy.
First, I would like to add something. You see, I think that the real problem is the following one. The real problem is that we are not able in Europe to produce objects, whatever, services, which are bought by the rest of the world. That's to say, we have not an economy which is performing as it should be if we want to pay for the costs which we have in Europe. We work less than any other part, than any other continent. The number of hours which we work per year is lower than in any other continent. The social charges are much higher than in any other continent. 58% of the social charges worldwide, governmental, happen in Europe, and only 42% of the rest of the world. And we're older. So if we want to compensate for all these things, we have to be much more productive. We have to be able to produce something which the others buy. If we don't do that, money will not help, employment will not help, because if we produce something which nobody buys, that's fine for 1 year. And after 1 year, the crisis will be much heavier. So we will have somehow, you know, the other parts of our planet, they have taken over our standard way of producing. That is not working anymore for us. So we will have to be much more innovative. We have to come up with new ideas. We have to really be creative. And that's a little an answer to you, and you should not only look for a job, you should also participate in creating jobs.
Is the Commission going to follow the Volcker rule or the Vickers Commission proposals, like, I mean, the ring fencing between the investment activities and the retail banking activities in the continental Europe, we could say? That's going, the model going to be followed. It's going to be the precursor for any other bailout in failed banking institutions, along with bail-in.
We have not yet taken, as the Americans, a solid decision on this one. What your colleague is asking, if we're going to make a separation between retail banking and investment banking. If that is going to be a strict separation, or if it is going to be only a Chinese wall. Normally, if banks behave as they should, it shouldn't be a real problem. If there is a financing guarantee and a capital requirement, which is high enough, and if there are guarantees in order to guarantee the deposits, then things shouldn't be as terrible as they are. So our banking supervision will play a very important role on this. We want to establish this one before we think about separation. But I wanted to answer something to you, because you are right. We need to innovate in order to be capable to continue to live. But I wouldn't be so negative as you are.
I'm not negative.
Oh, you are absolutely negative.
No. I'm always an extremely positive person, but I'm not a politician. But you know, so I say what we have to do. You know, just that's all. I mean, that's key. I'm sorry. I'm extremely positive, and I think we can do great things in Europe.
Look, I give you two examples.
Good.
I give you the example of mainly Germany, machine construction.
Right.
That is a worldwide success story. I give you another example. Our telecoms, worldwide success story. And I give you another example which shows that you are right and wrong in a certain way. Who has invented the World Wide Web?
We're going to celebrate 20 years of the World Wide Web in 1 week.
Yeah. It was the Europeans in the CERN, the research organization next to Geneva, who made out of the World Wide Web a commercial success. The Americans. Yeah. So I believe that this is a good example. So it was not the innovation which was missing. The innovation was there, very capable to innovate, to find something well, and then not capable to bring it from innovation to commercialization. And I have seen, because I was during 5 years responsible for technological research in the Commission, and I always saw the same thing. Wonderful research, but when it then came to invest into risk capital in order to make the idea or the product or the service which had been invented, to make it to go to the market, nobody. Because also risk is not in our DNA. We don't take risks.
We are not courageous enough.
We are not courageous enough. Well, you are a scientist. You meet this thing very regularly. But I believe for your generation that is a big problem. You cannot win without risk-taking. And I give you another example. If a company fails, if it goes and all our laws on failing companies are on how you dissolute a company, how you dissolve, thank you, a company. Le droit des faillites en Europe est un droit d'éliminer l'entreprise en faillite. Et là, j'ai mis sur la table une nouvelle législation européenne pour donner aux entreprises une deuxième chance. Il y a des faillites qui ne sont pas frauduleuses. Quelqu'un a fait une erreur ou a eu de la malchance. Eh bien, il faut lui donner une deuxième chance. Parce qu'on perd des dizaines de milliers d'emplois par des faillites avec des entreprises qu'on pourrait ressauver. Aux États-Unis, quand quelqu'un a fait faillite, qu'est-ce qu'on lui dit? La deuxième fois, il ne va pas faire la même erreur et il va construire quelque chose de bien. En Europe, vous avez fait faillite et vous êtes au banc de la société. Vous n'êtes plus un citoyen honorable. Eh bien, on doit changer ça. Et j'espère bien, cette génération met en place la manière d'y aller. Votre génération doit le faire. Pour qu'il y ait le venture capital et pour qu'on puisse se tromper une fois dans la vie pour mieux ressortir avec une autre idée. L'entrepreneuriat européen est à ce coup-là. Donc il ne suffit pas seulement de donner des incentives, il faut aussi que la tête change, que la mentalité change. Je vous donne un autre exemple, le business angels. Vous savez ce que c'est qu'un business angel? Un business angel, c'est quelqu'un qui connaît très très bien l'entreprise et qui aide des jeunes entrepreneurs dans leur garage, par exemple, des jeunes de votre âge, à mettre en pratique commerciale une idée. Eh bien, peut-être ça marche, peut-être ça ne marche pas, mais on les aide et on leur donne du capital à risque pour qu'ils puissent essayer de le faire. C'est comme ça que se sont faits des Google et des Facebook. En Europe, ça n'aurait jamais marché parce qu'on ne leur aurait jamais donné une chance. Eh bien, c'est là où il faut changer. Et là, je suis complètement d'accord avec M. Tarak. Il n'est pas suffisant qu'on ait à l'avenir, par l'université de Luxembourg, des laboratoires de recherche qui trouvent de très bonnes choses. Encore faut-il qu'il y ait le financement, le capital à risque et l'envie de prendre un risque et de gagner, ou peut-être de perdre.